All righty, everybody. Welcome to today's Talk with Doc. Today is going to be a very exciting talk that I've been looking for personally. One that's very close to my heart, and I think a topic that is going to be a great one to discuss. And our topic today is doing disability ministry through the eyes of a parent. And it's my honor to have our guest on today, Joscelyn Ramos Campbell, a very dear friend of mine. Perfect person to have on here. She is an amazing mother. She's a parent. She lives through this. She's a disability ministry leader. So she's coming from all these aspects as well. So Joscelyn, welcome. Why don't you just take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself, tell everyone about you and your amazing family and your ministry and everything that you do, all the amazing things you do.
Well, thank you so much, Doc, for having me on. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Joscelyn Ramos Campbell, and I am a special needs pastor here in Hope International Church in Groveland, Florida. I am an advocate, I'm a consultant, I am a special needs pastor, and I have 4 wonderful boys. My youngest has autism, and I am also a community leader here. And one of the things that I think it's so great, the Doc always has me back, and I'm so appreciative of that, is working with the community, working as just being a consultant and advocate and asking parents how we can work together. This is one of these sessions that really kind of hits home for me, because as a mother and also working with the community, it's how we can kind of incorporate the two, how we can make it better for our community, for our special needs families. And how can we do that, Doc? How we can make it easier for our families to be incorporated in the ministry, how we can work together, and how can we do events for the ministry that our families will attend and actually want to come to, because we know that our hearts are in the right place a lot of times in the ministry of doing events. And once we get these events going, but how can we get the families to show up and want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, this is an open forum for everyone. Those that are joining us here on Zoom, feel free to put any questions you might have at any time in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that. And those that are watching on Facebook Live, I'm following there as well. So you can put any of your questions into Facebook Live chat, and we'll be bringing those in and following those at the same time. So with that, this is such an important topic, and Joscelyn and I have talked about that in the past. And those me, I've had the honor of running a couple disability ministries. And this is something I didn't really realize the value of really viewing a disability ministry through the eyes of a parent until I got into it a little bit more with it. So let's just kind of start off with some of the first things every disability ministry leader needs to know, and some of the first things, and talk about the importance. So first thing I want to start with, Joscelyn, and then I'll let you kind of go. And we're both on the same page with this, but we know as a disability ministry leader, you need to have a leadership team to help you in planning everything that you do. It is vital that you have someone on that team who is a parent. You must have a parent on your leadership team. We're not saying that, only parents should be disability ministry leaders. Yes, Joscelyn and I both are parents, and we've been blessed with that. And yes, I'd say probably 50% of the disability ministry leaders I know out there are parents, and that's great. But you need to have a parent on the team so that they can speak truth, they can speak life into what you're doing. Let you know, yeah, this is a good idea, or no, this isn't. Joscelyn, why don't you, kind of share your ideas and speak, expound on that a little bit.
What Doc just said is so imperative. You definitely need to have a parent, someone that can speak life and speak some real life experiences into a ministry. Now, one of the things that I find that is just so imperative is a parent will bring some real life experiences. And what we're saying real life experiences, for example, if you're going to do an event, okay, a parent will be able to tell you now, hey, event for special needs ministry will be wonderful. Let's do an event for the family. A parent will be able to tell you, hey, listen, an event at in the middle of the day is not going to work on a Wednesday. Okay, a parent's going to be the one to tell you that. A parent's going to be the one to tell you, hey, let's do something on a Saturday when the parents can get together on a weekend to do a family fun event. A parent is the one who's going to be able to tell you, if you're going to do something during the week, it will have to be after hours when the parents can be already out of work if you're going to do it. And if it's going to be in the middle of the week, then you have to provide childcare. You're going to have to make sure that it's after dinner hours if you really need to do it in the middle of the week, because preferably a lot of times we prefer it maybe on the weekend when it could be a family fun event. So that way the kids can come. Make sure that you're going to provide something that having those safety issues, you've got to put in a lot of work. Make sure if we're dealing with kids that are going to have elopement issues, going to have to go through that list. That's going to be a safe environment for our special needs kiddos. Those parents are going to be already having all of those things in mind because, hey, we're the special needs parents. We know kind of what we're going to have to be dealing with our kids. So that parent is going to have those things already in place, already thinking about that. Whereas a volunteer who maybe doesn't have a special needs kids will not already be thinking of those things because they don't have a special needs child. So a parent is going to be the one to tell you that, listen, a 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, you might not have a lot of showing for that. You're not going to have someone's going to come in. You're not going to have the special needs come in because, listen, at 5 o'clock, when they're just probably getting home, they're not going to run right away, turn around and going to come to the church for an event. You know, you're not going to get a large amount of people to show up for that event because they already know a parent is like, listen, that's time when they've got to be doing homework. There's time when they've got to be cooking dinner. You know, for coming for 1 hour for an event, you're not going to get a good turnout for that. So that's what a parent can do, can kind of really give you that real life scenario that you need to talk about for your event.
Absolutely. So, and then, you know, it's vital just to be able to have those parents be your sounding board. You know, very much like Joscelyn's saying there. And it really helps. So, Joscelyn, let me kind of, and so one of our real quick questions just came in. Are you thinking of individuals with special needs that are 0 to 12 years old, or who are we talking about here with that? And so I'll go ahead and jump on that first. I'd say this would be with any individual with disability, no matter what age it is. And for a disability ministry, you know, any church, I'd say it's always important that you start with what you have and you're able to work with the people you have. Frequently, that's going to be, you know, in the 0 to 12 year age groups, but realize that disability ministry, those 0 to 12-year-olds will eventually be 15-year-olds, eventually be 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And so your ministry needs to be able to plan to move forward as your families grow. But they were following up with that saying, because I would like to suggest to not have a parent on a team, but actually invite a person who has the disability, is a neurodiverse on the team. And I absolutely love that. Yes, I welcome that as well. So I would love to see both sides of that, to be honest with you. So if you're able, I would say, you know, it's good to have someone who is the parent to be able to speak into that. And that really does work with younger, but especially as you're working now with the teens and the adults, having, you know, maybe an adult with disability on there and have them speaking into your team, I think is just as important and just as good to have. And And, we have in our place, we have frequently tapped into some of our adults and had them, be a part of that.
Mhm.
What do you think, Joscelyn?
I think definitely, definitely always, I think a parent is necessary, but as they do get older, I think it would be great to have representation from someone who has an individual with disabilities. I love that comment. I think even as you get older, for example, an adult with disabilities, a teen, I love seeing those with teens that might can speak into that time period in their life. I think it would be great to have a teen, of course, as you said, an adult, but I love when they have teens. I know we have here in the area teens that are involved in different aspects. So they have a team that belongs to a social club, teens that are on Boy Scouts, things like that. It would be great also to see some representation of that they can include some of the activities that they are in, things that they would like to be a part of. So it would be great to see some representation for teens that are part of their social clubs and things that they want to be a part of. So that was also a really great idea as well. Things that we can have, people that we can have representation also. So it's not just inclusivity of just the parents, but that we can incorporate some individuals and things that they like would have also representation on those panels.
Right. Absolutely. So, let's kind of go into, I know you had some other things on your heart you wanted to share with that. So let me just kind of turn over to you and let you share some of your other thoughts.
Yeah, I would love to see representation is so important right now. And I think it's always has been, but there has been a lack of it. So I think having kind of those equity teams, just having some kind of diversity as well, is really important when you're creating these panels. Reaching out to your community and having those outreach support teams is so important. I love to see kind of diversity on the team. So if you know basically where you're standing at, who is in your community. So if obviously parents, number one, that is always going to be, for me, that is always important. Having a parent, no matter what is in your community, having a parent is always important because you want to make sure that you know what your needs are. So parent number one is always going to be on there. Having one of our commenters saying, having an individual with disabilities to knowing what their needs are, an adult, having a teen if you have that as well, but having some diversity. If you're in a community that maybe might have Latinos on there, might have a little bit more of an African-American population, you want to reach out to them. And if you don't have that, let's say in your congregation, then this is the time to reach out to your local community members. Because I know in a lot of communities, they have civic organizations, they might have a police, or they might have firemen, they might have different organizations that you can reach out as a congregation, that you can say, hey, we would love to have some of you kind of come in here and speak on our diversity team. You can have an equity team, but we want to make sure that we're not missing out these opportunities, that we can have representation on our board, that we want to have those local community members on our board so we can make sure that we are reaching out to all of God's community, because we want to make sure that when we have our special needs community, that we're reaching out to everyone here in our community so that no one is getting left out. Because a lot of times when we're talking about our special needs community, what is the one thing that we always hear often? We don't feel welcome, right? We don't feel welcome. We didn't know about this event. We didn't know about that because no one's reaching out. So we really are the ones that we have to make that effort to reach out to everyone in our community. And I think Doc would agree with me on this. That's something that we often hear, right? That we didn't know about things, we're not welcome, we didn't know. And then we're adding that on top of that. That's already, a lot of times we just hear that plain already. But then on top of that, we're talking about special needs. We really are the ones that really have to make that extra effort to reach out to those in our community. And so we want to be a place where everyone is welcome. So how great it would be that already, if our children who are special needs and often do not feel welcome in the churches, that we are the ones to be that we're the ones that really extending that hand to our community and say, hey, we've got a special needs program. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. We don't care the background, whatever it is. We want you to know that you are welcome to our church. You're welcome to our special needs program. And here's what we have available for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, fully agree there. one of the first off, again, let me just remind everyone of some very important statistics that are out there. Currently today, latest statistics are showing only 11% of churches in the United States are doing active disability ministry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's just unacceptable. First off, it's a biblical mandate that every church welcomes families with disabilities. That's Luke 14. So what that means is 89% of churches are not welcoming families with disabilities, even those who are already there. And so we need to come alongside and help them. At the same time, it's estimated that 90% of families with disabilities don't attend any church.
Right.
So we're actually dealing with the largest unmet people group. Now, the other thing that aren't going to church in the United States. Now, the other thing I want to remind every special needs disability ministry leader out there, disability ministry is unlike any other ministry in the church. And this is even if you are only doing it in kids ministry right now, even if you're just doing 0 to 12, still disability ministry, you're serving the entire family. It's not just the individual with the disability. You're also having to think about the siblings, because the siblings don't have a normal life, and you got to be serving the parents. And so part of that is working with every other ministry in the church. And, as a disability ministry leader, you need to be aware of the needs of the parents. And that's, again, where seeing ministry through the eyes of a parent will really help you in being able to talk with other ministries and talk through that. And it can be as simple as maybe first starting with your worship, department, and, telling the worship pastor, hey, you know what? Instead of telling everyone, hey, would you please stand and join with us in singing whatever our song is today? By saying that, they're immediately discriminating against those who can't stand, maybe those in wheelchairs or whatever it might be. But, they can simply just change that word and say, if you're able, would you please stand and join us? You just now gave permission, because here's the thing. 20% of adults today are disabled. And, Joscelyn and I both are in that category. We're both have disability ourselves. So not only are we parents of individuals with disabilities, we are disabled ourselves and run ministry. So we actually have multiple hats that we can wear and see through the eyes of. But there are many people, and there may be elderly people who just can't even stand up in the church. And for the singing, but they feel left out with that. But here's the other thing where a parent can be so important. And I'm sure just your church is like every other church today. Most churches today are doing small groups.
Yes.
Small groups are wonderful. They're fantastic. And it's a great way to have community. I have yet to meet a family with an individual with disability who does not want to have community. They long for community. The problem is, it's rare to find a church that is able to welcome families with disabilities into these small groups. And most of it is because they don't realize they have to do anything different, or that it's harder with it. So again, that's where it's important to have a family, a parent on our team to make us aware of the challenges, how hard it is to come to church sometimes. I've talked to churches who have said, yeah, we'll make our 8 a.m. service our disability special needs service.
No. That's no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's the worst time to make. It's too hard to get our kids around that early. It's not going to work. Well, they're thinking, senior leadership are thinking, well, that works because that's our least serve we can get, we can do. Well, it might work for the church, but it doesn't work for who we're trying to serve. And so again, we need to learn that from our families, but we've got to find ways that we can welcome our families and have them be inclusive in every single area of our church with it. You want to go into any more with that, Joscelyn?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that it's so important to have a parent on every aspect, because a parent is the one who can also train the entire leadership. and bring awareness to what it is that a family goes through. As Doc was just saying, it's a training that starts from all the way from the ushers all the way up to senior pastors. And to be honest, if the senior pastors are not on board, then nothing can happen, because the senior pastors really have to be on board with this, because senior pastors, of course, are the ones that are the leadership. It goes from the top all the way down. I think Doc will agree with me on this as well.
Absolutely.
Senior pastors have to be on board with everything of this, because it takes a real training. It takes real dedication for the entire church to understand this, because this is not something that just happens like, okay, we're going to put this, okay, we'll start a disability training, we'll start something, and you have to be on the side. No, this is really a mandate, as Doc said, this is a mandate from the Lord. And it takes the whole entire church to be on board. This is not something that can just happen on one Sunday and we'll just put this in the side on the room. No, it's inclusivity for the entire church. It starts from right away from the ushers. It starts from when they come onto the church, from when the first family rolls onto the church, from the ushers saying hello, from right away, from now everyone, from the children's church, because there's going to be some children that can actually participate in regular children's church, maybe with a buddy being there. And there's going to be some children that do have to go into a separate classroom, and there's going to be their own curriculum and all of that. But it is an entire church process. It is going to know that some kids that can be with their parents, that are going to be in with their parents, they might have to have a sensory backpack. But how does the ushers know about that? Because there's been a training, a church-wide training that has happened. It's an inclusive church. That is what is going to happen. But that starts at the head. Everyone's going to know, from the senior pastors on down, this is what we're accepting. The whole entire church is accepting that this is part of now our new church. The entire church is a part of this. This is not something that's separate away, but that has to happen when the whole church is accepting. This is now, just like we have Sunday school, just like we have missions, just like we have other programs, this is something that is happening to our entire church. But if your church is saying, I don't know if we're going to do this, or, I think we might leave this on another Sunday, we might do this next year, then it's not going to work. And there's so many, and I know a lot of pastors says, well, this sounds sometimes when you hear pastors hear all of this, well, this sounds really kind of intimidating, because I know pastors sometimes say this, or this sounds like it's really expensive. One of the things that we always like to say is that there's so many resources out there. SOARs, there is Key Ministry. There are so many resources that are already out there for pastors right now. It's not like they have to right now say, well, how do we start this? Right now for pastors, like SOARs, like, Key Ministry, there's Sandra Peoples, there's so many wonderful organizations right now that they can come into and just say, how do I start? How do I start? What do I do? And they can get tuned into these resources, and it will take them from A to B on what they need to do. These are consultants that will come and go alongside them and tell them from the start to the finish how they can become an all-inclusive church, to help them to start. These are consultants that will come to their churches from the beginning to the A to Z to help them to start this. And this is why it's needed, because right now there are millions, and I say millions because it is millions, and Doc can tell you, of wonderful families right now sitting at home that don't go to church. And we're not talking about families who never went to church before. We're talking about Bible believing Christians who were raised in the church and don't go to church right now. Think about that. These are people that need church. These are people that were raised in the church. These are people that need that community. One of the things that we've been talking about lately is before COVID and after COVID. People have been at home, and they need that connection. Everyone's talking about, like, they want to be back in church, and they want that connection. They want that community. And for families who've been at home, it's nothing new, because they haven't been going to church already for years.
Yep.
It's nothing new, because we haven't been going to the church. For many of them, they haven't been at the church because they haven't been welcomed. They've been wanting to go back to it. They've been wanting to find a place where they can be, where their brothers and sisters, where their children can be learning. The siblings The siblings have been taking on, they are right there with their parents because they have been just like mom and dad. They have been there helping them raise those kids because they need support as well. Those wonderful siblings, they need support. They need to be a place where they can just relax and guess what? Just be siblings as well. But there has not been a chance for them to do that often. There's not one of the wonderful resources, a place called Sib Shop, and sometimes they have them in different places across the country, and sometimes there's not. And COVID has stopped a lot of that anyway. As we all know, many of those different resources that are in person have been stopped. But a lot of the families have been, like Doc said, just been sitting at home for years, just been sitting at home. And these families would love to be in a place where there's community, where they can come and just have a place where their child can be safe and them just get a refill and just be able to worship together. But they haven't been able to because they don't have a place to come to, and this is what we're talking about. And these are people that, guess what? If they were in your church, guess what they would be? Tithers. Guess what they else would be? Would be able to be an asset into your community, into your congregation. They have talents already. They've always had talents, but they can't go anywhere because they don't have that church. They don't have that local church to be doing that in. So this is the kind of things that we're talking about. This is the kind of things that we need, those kind of connections. They need those places where they can be safe with their children. They need that kind of church, that local congregation where they can just come and get a breather. That's why we are so passionate about these things, because we know that these people are sitting at churches, sitting at home right now, thousands, millions of families, and they haven't had a chance to do that for years, and there's connection. And these are some things that if you look at it for pastors and they're like, there's so many reasons, no, well, we can't. And it just takes one yes. And you see that all those resources are out there available for you.
That's right. Yeah, I completely scream amen to everything you just said. And again, I'll throw out SOAR. We are definitely here. That's one of the things we specialize in helping churches do disability ministry. We'd love to come alongside you wherever you are in your journey, starting it, have something help you take it to the next level. You can contact us at info@soarspecialneeds.org and we'll help you. But maybe you're sitting here, and one of the things I love to do is myth busting. One of my specialties is getting senior leadership on board. And so I want to just take what you said and let's help everyone out there think through how having a parent on your team can help you with that. And so for me, you may be sitting here right now saying, well, we're doing some disability ministry, but yeah, our senior leadership really doesn't get it. They don't understand. We can't get them completely on board yet. This is Doc's belief. And I really believe this is true across the board. Every church I know has a children's ministry. Why? Every senior leadership, they know the importance of children's ministry. They've been a child or they have children. And so they don't even think about it. It's just, of course, we need to have children's ministry. And they know if they don't have children's ministry, it won't grow. Just about every single church I've ever worked with, been at, seen, has some type of care ministry. And what is in a care ministry? Well, a care ministry would include hospital visitation. It would include, that's also your counseling, grief help, divorce care, grief share, any things like that. It would also, if you help those who need money or help, give out handouts or anything with that, you can help with that. That all falls under the care ministry. Elderly visits, things like that. That many churches have that. Why? Every senior leadership I know has parents or grandparents that they've seen need those effects from the church. And so they know that importance. And so they make sure that's there and they see the importance of it. Why are there so few churches with disability or special needs ministries?
Right.
It's because the senior leadership has not been personally touched by special needs or disability. And so they don't understand it. And what happens when we don't understand something? We're afraid of it and we just push it off and we say, oh, I don't know what to do, so I just won't deal with it, even if it's biblical to do. So that's where we need to come in and teach. And so one of the best ways to open the eyes of our senior leadership. Maybe you're a director out there right now. And what I want to challenge you, if you're trying to get your senior leadership on board and understand things, invite your senior pastor and wife, spouse to dinner and have them go to dinner. Invite that parent on your team and their family to dinner at the same time, and you all break bread together. And you don't necessarily have to make the meal. Maybe you can get the meal catered in, but have them sit down together and break bread together. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, parent, don't think you have to have your child on the best behavior. You don't want them on best behavior. No, I don't want that. You want that senior leadership to see real life, to realize, oh my gosh, you mean you've got a 13-year-old child and you have to cut up all their food and you have to feed it to them? Or, holy cow, you can't even make it through a meal and eat your food while it's hot. Literally, senior leadership has no idea that life is like that. And so helping them open their eyes with that, but then encouraging that parent to share, yeah, you know how hard it is for our family to make it to church on Sunday. And then, there's some churches out there where the senior leadership says, yeah, we'll take you. But then that parent has to stay with their child in Sunday school. Well, just, I don't know any children's ministry that requires all the parents stay with their kids. Why do you discriminate against our family with it? And that's, you're saying you're welcoming everyone, but we just don't feel welcomed. And it's having these very raw, very open discussions and sharing that with them. I'm telling you, you will open the eyes of them and they will learn things. And it all comes back to, I say it over and over, I've only got one requirement for anyone to ever serve in a disability ministry. It's a simple question. Can you be a friend? Amen. That's all it takes to serve. You don't need to have any experience. One of the main myths I bust all the time with senior leadership is we don't have the experience. We don't know the people that need it. Well, guess what? I'm a parent and Joscelyn's a parent. Neither one of us were given an instruction manual when our kids got the diagnoses at all. We had to learn how to take care of our kids through love and being a friend to them and being there with them and walking through it with them. That's the same thing you do in ministry. And a disability ministry is based on relationships. It's not based on how much you know, it's based on relationships. And we need to teach that. And then we need to teach that to the rest of the staff and then the rest of the church. And so that's, again, why it's so important to have that knowledge from the eyes of a parent to be able to help you be able to share that and teach that. Because it's not just teaching the knowledge. Well, autism is this, Down syndrome is this, cerebral palsy is this. We need more than a book knowledge. We need to know how to deal with behaviors. We need to know how to create relationships and not to be scared. I'm sorry, but today, autism no longer needs to be considered the A word in church. It's autism. It's latest numbers, 1 out of every 44 kids today have autism. The latest numbers that are coming out for disabilities, 1 out of every 4 kids today has a disability. Yep. It's in our church. We've got to figure out how to welcome them and welcome these families and not have them be fearful of having to be turned away. And so we've got to find ways where we can welcome them with it.
Amen. In my church, and we are blessed that we have 2 senior pastors who have very open to this and were very quick to catch this on. But I will tell you, you can use, like, for example, April, Autism Awareness Month. And we use that as a catalyst in our church for bringing 5 moms together and doing an open forum for them to use that as we had a Hope Talk, like a talk show. And we use that as April Awareness Month, Autism Awareness Month. And we had them all talk about kind of questions and answers on what it was like to be autism moms of autistic children. And that was the day just to hear, when we had the church, it was a Wednesday night, just to have them hear what they go through on a daily basis
Yeah.
and hear how they respond into the community. And they were, a teacher and just moms, and they came from different walks of life. And we just had them talk about what it was like as mothers with children with autism. And hearing that, our senior pastors hearing that, they jumped out of their seat. I mean, it was an hour long, but I think we got into like 40 minutes, and our senior pastor jumped. And he was like, we are going to have a special needs curriculum here. We're going to have this pastor special needs. And within a year, we had all of that. But it made a difference. It made such a difference, not only for our senior pastors, but for the church to hear that, as a congregation to hear that. And that is something with what Doc said of taking out your senior pastors. And for even just doing something like that, you can use the April as a, just for an example, you can use April as a disability awareness month or an autism awareness month in your church. But to hear that, even the church to hear something like that, when you have guest speakers or things like that, because it makes them aware for the first time, like it was like, what? They got to do what? They got to do what just to get out of the house? It was an awareness that brought that people sometimes really just don't know what you go through as a special needs mother, as a special needs father. And it brought a level of awareness, because people think they know by what they see on the movies, by what they see on TV, or maybe what they hear from their friends, but they really do not know until you sit there and you hear from mothers and fathers of what they have to go through day in and day out. And that brought a level of awareness in our church that they did not have before. So it is so important to know those kind of things when you're bringing it in front of the church, because it really solidified. And I know that did that to that congregation that day. Like, we've got to do something. These are people in our community. These are people that are trying to be in this church, but look how it took them just to even get here tonight. Look what they had to do that. We had planned that months, like a couple months in advance, but just what they have to go through each day to get to the work, to get to their school, to even come to church. They were like, people were like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe you guys even get here more than once a month. It just brought a level of understanding, of empathy, and that's what it really just is, really what everybody needed on that panel. And it's what God allowed to happen. And look, out of that day, it created a whole program. It created a new special needs ministry in that church, and God used that. But it's something that it brought a community together just by hearing 4 or 5 moms speak on what we go through every day, so let that be something that you can use what Doc said about taking out your senior pastors. I mean, this sometimes what happens that there's just not an understanding. No one knows, Doc, and Doc can agree with me on this, that nobody knows. No one knows what the people go through. No one knows what parents go through. This is why it's so important to have a parent on your team. That's why it's so important, because a parent can speak to what aids. We can't, like, let's say, whatever parent goes through, each parent is different with their child, but we all know, some of us all have the same things that we go through, some of the general things that we all go through, and a parent can
Pulling back the curtain.
Yes, absolutely. And we all go through some of the very same things, and that is what we can all speak to a church. That's what we can all speak to as a team that does not know. And that's what it is. Sometimes on a council, sometimes on a team, and to a church, that they just don't know what we go through, and they have no idea. So we can speak that into them and say, this is what's going to work. This is really not what's going to work, and let the church know, here's how you can minister better to our families. And this is how you can come to our families, and how you can make us feel welcome in your church.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, just while we're talking on senior leadership, usually my experience, one of the next 2 big rejections on why they can't do ministry. First is, we just don't have the budget to be able to do that. Here's the amazing thing. It doesn't cost any money. Because you can include them in your current ministry. And honestly, if you want to do a sensory room, you can do a sensory room for as much as $250 or $500. And usually you can find it donated. Most sensory toys you can get donated. The best ones are McDonald's Happy Meal toys. They work great with sensory fidgets. The second one, we just don't have the volunteers for that. Well, here's my challenge I want you to send back to the pastor. I assume your church is no different than any other church I've ever attended or worked with. 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people.
Yep.
What does that mean? 80% of the people are coming to the service and they're sitting in the pews, sitting in the chairs, and they are knickknacks collecting dust.
Yep.
They are not doing anything. And the reason they're not doing anything is they haven't found anything that the Holy Spirit has lit them on fire, that's what they're passionate about and doing. And it very well could be that disability ministry is that thing for their passion, for them to get going with. So we need that. And again, having stories from our parents helps bring that awareness.
Yeah.
We need parents telling that story of how hard it is to come to church, why it's so important for them to come to church, and see that transformation in life to be able to move forward to help. And then from volunteers as well. So you make sure we use our families. Make sure we can try to get our families. I encourage our individuals with disabilities to serve. I encourage our families with individuals with disabilities that they serve. If that means you have to get a buddy for them to serve, do it. If it means you have to get an extra buddy because you're going to have that participant for 2 hours instead of 1, do it. We're all called to serve. Let them use their gifts to do it. So, I'm going to go back and we'll kind of go down another avenue now with that. Some of the, things that I've learned having parents on my team and the importance of it, and that what can happen if you don't do that. And one of my stories, and I'll let then Joscelyn share, I'm sure she's got some stories, but one of my stories, I had an amazing team. And at this point, I didn't have a parent on the team. I was pretty much functioning as that role, which is fine with that. But my team came up with a great idea for an event. And the event itself, it was all a great idea, but the way they wanted to do it was not right for our families. They wanted to do an event on a Thursday night in the middle of the winter for 1 hour. Well, I'm sorry, as a parent, there's no way I would bundle my kids up to go out in the middle of the winter for a 1 hour event to turn around and go back home, no matter how good that event might be. And they didn't believe me when I told them no one's going to do it. So I challenged them. I said, you pick 10 of our families by random, any 10 that you want to pick, and tell them what you're wanting to do and flat out ask them if they're going to come. 9 of the 10 families they called said, no, that would not be right for us. Now, what would have happened if we did not have that insight of a parent? We would have planned all of it. We would have had the volunteers, and then it would have been a major dud. What happens with that? We tell our volunteers, oh my gosh, we had this great event. Thank you so much for coming out. But they would have felt completely useless, not needed. What's the likelihood of them coming to another event of yours?
None.
0.
Right.
Parents, you have one event that doesn't work for them, they're probably not going to listen to your future event ideas. It just, oh my gosh, they really don't have the heart to us. They don't understand what we need. And this is our ministry. They're going to just turn you off.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to make sure you are in touch with them. And guess what? We changed the event. We did it later in the year. We did it on a Saturday and we lengthened it. And it was a smash hit. We had a ton of families and everything worked great. And it was wonderful. So again, the idea was great. The execution of how they wanted to do it was bad. But if we didn't look at that through the eyes of a parent, it could have been brutal with that. I just want to give a quick shout out. I've got my brother on here from Africa, Kenya, Africa. Joseph is on. And, one of the things he shared is that his organization, we work with them. They're one of our outreach partners, Hub of Hope. They're actually mobilizing a Christian response towards children with disabilities and their families, and they're encouraging the faith communities there, and they're training 20 local churches to welcome families, and we're assisting them with that. So really proud of Joseph and his team and what they're doing. Hub of Hope is amazing. If you'd like more information on Hub of Hope, contact me. We are in the process of creating missions trips for families with disabilities to go serve other families with disabilities with that. So we've got another question that's come in. Let me get to that before we go anywhere else. The question is, the parent on the team, what are your expectations of them? How much time to commit would you ask from them in light of the demand of care in their family? You want to take that, or you want me to?
Yeah, so what was the question was?
So the question is, for the parent that you would have on your leadership team, what's your expectations from them as far as, time commitment, since, most parents already have quite a big time commitment being parents?
Yeah. Well, that is a good question. Now, it really depends on that team that they have and what they have set up as, I would say, what they've set up as their ministry. So first of all, I would not suggest that it's only their parent. I mean, your situation, Doc, being the parent and being like the leader, that actually often happens, I will say. I mean, that is not, it does happen a lot. And because honestly, oftentimes you will find that the director is also a parent. I mean, that's my situation as well. But you really want to set up a team that has not just the parent as the head, but also has other volunteers as well, to be part of the team, and you have others that are working with you. But I will definitely say that you want to start from the beginning. Let's just say in the beginning, you are going to find that you are the director, you're the one moving everything around, because that's often how it is in churches. You're the one who set it up, you're the one who wants to make sure this is working, you're the gung-ho person, because God often calls upon you to do this, especially when you're the one who understands the need. And that's always happens in the beginning. I will say, let's say most of the time, that's usually how it starts. You're the parent, you're the one who wants this to start going, in the beginning, oftentimes this is the way it is. But eventually you want it to be that you have set up a team, you have set other people, that you are raising up leaders, you are raising up disciples to take this over, and you are raising up others to work with you in this. As far as the time commitments to this, that is, I will almost say, I think it will be up to the individual, Doc, as far as how you want this to be working. If you are kind of setting this up to also be like other churches have set this up, like they want to do satellite churches, or us actually doing this. I've seen this happen before in other churches where, okay, we're setting this up in this church, but now we want to continue this in another church. So they're doing this to start in one church and they're starting to do this in other churches. That is up to you how you want this time commitment to be. Or if you're doing this here as a full-time thing, then this is your full-time job, but in light of your demand, I think this is almost like an individual. If this is, because like Doc, with your SOARs, I mean, this is your full-time job, correct, Doc?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, this is Doc's full-time gig, so this is what Doc does full-time. So it really depends on how you're setting this up. If this is your full-time, or if this is, something that you are called to do, or if you have other, whatever the Lord has called you to do for, for your other jobs. But eventually, like if this is what you want to do, for your ministry, then this is what God has called you to do. And this is, you still have to balance that with your responsibility at home and your responsibilities at the church. But, I mean, for me, I like the way I look at it, like this is what God has called me to do. I mean, I have had, yes, my background is something, and I believe that everything that God has used in my background has called me to this calling. And that's how I see it. I've done wonderful things. I'm proud of the things I've done. And I'm thankful the Lord has brought me to this point. But I believe everything that the Lord has used in my life is to bring me to the calling that he has had. And I have to balance that with being a mother and a wife, because that's also my calling as well.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead and take, I agree with what you said. I'll take it a little further. First off, let me address, maybe the first part of the question, in not just the parent, but your leadership meetings, and that team meetings and that. How often should you meet as a leadership team? My recommendation, my preference would be that you meet at least monthly or every other month. I think that's just good to be able to do that. What I usually, and then for me, that would be 1 to 2 hours for those meetings, usually is what I tried to keep it at, depending on what it was. For my expectations for the parent, what I had with them and when I talked to them, my plans were that they were just a part of my leadership team and those meetings. When we had other events, they had zero expectations to be a part of the setup planning of those events. We talked through them, but they weren't there. Why? That event was for them. I was planning on having them attend the event as the parent or have it for their child. And I didn't want them to be having to feel like they had to volunteer or do any of that. So we're trying to serve them. So I treat, and the rest of my team understood that and realized that they were an expert on our panel, if you would, our leadership team, in helping us in planning, helping us and figure things out. But the actual execution of everything was left up to the rest of the team and other volunteers that we would get for it. Now, if I had a parent who would say, well, I want to help out with this, we'd let them. I had a amazing parent. I love her to death. I used to have a rule that parents would never be allowed to volunteer, with us and do that because we wanted to give to them. And she flat out called me out and said, why would you hinder me from receiving the blessing that God's calling me to do? Like, oh, wow. Okay. Hit me right between the eyes again. So I don't say that anymore. I prefer that they don't, but if they really feel like they're being called to and God's telling it, come on, you can serve with it. But I don't have any expectations that they have to do anything else outside of our planning meeting. So for it, it's 1 to 2 hours every month or two. Pretty much every single parent that I know, they're able to make that kind of commitment. Because those meetings are also, I usually did those meetings at times that wouldn't hinder with the rest of the family time. So, and for me, what I found with my team, the majority of the time, those meetings worked well Sunday afternoons or maybe Saturday afternoon before service. And so that's what we did, and that worked for most people's schedule, and it didn't really throw off, the parent with trying to work around their schedule and taking care of kids with that. So that's what I would say there. So, all right. Boy, we're fine. We're coming to the top of the hour. Again, unbelievable. With that, any story or anything you have that you learned where just having the parent view has saved a bad outcome or something for you?
Yeah, it has. One time we had an event, and it was actually it was related to a school event that we had, and it was kind of because the school had a kind of an IPP event. It was related to one of those events that they were going to have a fair. And because it was related to an IEP event and it was a fair here locally, they had it, and it was supposed to be for parents, but they were kind of mixing it up as a fair as well. And so we thought, okay, we will do it in conjunction with this IEP event. But they told the parents that it was also going to be the kids can come. Okay, so the kids can come, but it was supposed to be like an IEP review as well. So it was like the kids can come, but who's going to be taking care of the kids if it's an IEP review, like an overview, kind of learning the basics of that, And so I was like, well, if it's supposed to be an IEP review and the parents are supposed to be kind of learning the basics of that, who is taking care of the kids? So it was that kind of a thing. And so parents are really getting confused because this is an IEP review. The kids are supposed to come. Who's taking care of the kids? And there's a partnership with this one of the local schools. And so when the parents were calling about it, the school did not tell the parents like, oh, hey, the kids, we're not really taking care of the kids kind of thing. They just said kids can come. How very general of that, and stuff. And the parents were like, well, who's taking care of the kids? So we had, with us as the parents, we're like, listen, this, I know the school was telling you that's an IEP review, but I think we should kind of do this on a Saturday. So when we really found out was the person that made the flyers and everything, when it came right down to it, was a 22-year-old girl. And she had no idea that when she made up this whole thing that said IEP review, and she said, oh, kids are welcome. You're like, hey, someone's got to be taking care of these children. Also, you're doing this like at 7 o'clock at night, like 6:30, as a matter of fact, it was on a Wednesday. And I was like, these kids are going to be hungry. Who's taking care of them? So it turned out that we kind of canceled it for the school. And we said, if you're going to do something like this, it would be great that either you do this after dinner, or make sure you're going to have childcare, or if you're going to do this on a weekend, maybe, or on a Friday, you kind of do it in advance where they can have childcare. Or if you want to do it like on a Saturday, we can do like a fun family thing. So we ended up having it done on a Saturday, like at 1 o'clock, and we had like a bounce house, and parents were able to come out, and we even provided a translation service so that some of the parents who did not speak English can get a translation of it. And it was a great event. But yeah, when we found out who did it, and sometimes it's just like that, someone just kind of came up with it, and the education office, hey, it sounds great. You don't do that on a Wednesday, with no just kind of like checking in with us. We provided like the building for them to do it, but
right.
Yeah, you need stuff. Work with the
so
parent on that.
Yep. So that's a great reminder that I want to
Yeah.
make sure. And one of the points I want to make sure we passed on today. That's the other thing to remember. Any event that you do, especially if it's geared towards parents, you've got to be able to plan something for the kids, because you're not going to get parents to come if you don't have childcare or something set up for the kids. And remember, we're not just dealing with any childcare. We're now dealing with childcare with individuals with disabilities. So we're needing buddies. We're needing to make sure we're going to have a lot of people to be able to handle that. Yeah. So you got to always take that into account with things. So we are coming to the top of the hour. Joscelyn, let me again thank you. Why don't you just kind of think your parting shot you want here? I've got a couple of announcements to bring everyone up to speed on, and then we'll have our closing parting shot here. Sure. For you, but want to thank everyone for joining us today. I think we could have gotten, both Joscelyn and I knew we could have gone for a few hours on this, but hopefully this has been good for you. If you do have any other questions on this or want to talk with Joscelyn, just contact us at info@soarspecialneeds.org. I'm happy to set you up with Joscelyn. SOAR is here to help you, help your church in any way possible as well. We do have several different announcements for you. First off, SOAR has launched our SOAR store. You can get amazing hoodies like this. I'm telling you, I love this thing. It's so soft and cozy. I was sharing with Joscelyn, we actually got one kid who the mom told me he won't take it off because it's so soft. She literally has to wash it like every night, every other night, because they are so amazingly soft. So that's on there. Prices include tax and shipping, so everything's great there. We got amazing, tumblers too that are like Yetis. They're great, plus a bunch of other things. So check that out, soarspecialneeds.org/shop to get all that. We do have a couple events coming up I want to let you know about. Those that are in the greater Kansas City area, Monday morning, we are launching registration for our next respite, our next in-person respite. That will be February the 18th and 19th. We are going to have a safari theme for this next year, and that is actually going to be held out at Cobb Prairie Community Church in Shawnee, Kansas. So all of our families around Shawnee, be ready for that. Registration is going to be going up Monday morning at around 9-10 o'clock. So be watching emails, be ready for that. We'll have very limited spots due to COVID and the size of the location. So we'll get you out for that. Also, Tuesday night for anybody, Tuesday the 18th, we have a virtual respite for an hour. It'll be from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Our theme is traveling around the world. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of Zoom games and different things. So join us. You can sign up for that on our website, Wonderfully Made, SOARspecialneeds.org to learn about that as well. Our next Talk with Doc will be in 2 weeks, and this will be another one that's going to be a great one. Joanna French is going to be joining me, and our talk will be on coming alongside those with chronic pain. So that's another thing to know about. Again, Joscelyn could speak on that. She deals with that. I deal with that. So it's going to be another great topic. But a lot of our parents deal with that. A lot of our kids deal with that. But we need to know how to talk with them, how to work with them with that. So how to deal with chronic pain. January 28th, registration will be going up next week for that one. So again, Joscelyn, thank you so much for joining us. And I should throw out too, we are hiring. We are looking for interns to work with us for summer camp this summer. We'd love to have you be with us. They are paid positions, so contact us at info@soarspecialneeds.org. Plus, we are hiring for activities director, a full-time position. If you're interested in that, let me know at info@soarspecialneeds.org. I'll send you the job description of that. And then we're also looking for an admin assistant. So anyone in the greater Kansas City area, if you want to move to Kansas City, work with a great nonprofit organization with SOAR, we'd love to have you. So with that, let me throw back to you, Joscelyn. Again, thank you for being with us, but parting shot that you want to make sure everyone takes away.
First of all, once again, thank you, Doc, for having me on. Anyone who's listening, definitely always remember, have a parent. The parent will always guide you right for special needs. And we're just so thankful that you are considering having a special needs ministry, and you'll always go right. Make sure you have a special needs ministry in your church.
Absolutely. And again, I want to say thank you to you for joining us. Please check the parents, get their feedback.
Yeah.
It's going to save you a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, and it really will help grow your ministry.
Yeah.
And then time to time, I'd say, do surveys of your families. Find what works for them, what doesn't work, how you can better serve them. Yes. We can always do better, but we got to do that by contacting the people we actually serve. So reach out to them and learn from that with it. So with that, we'll close today. Hope you join us again in 2 weeks. And as always, come soar with us. Y'all have a good day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.